friends, esteemed participants, I also would like to greet you with all my respect.
Con todo mi respeto.
Thank you for those who put a great effort, who gathered us together and organized this event. Thank you very much for their efforts. In this conference, everyone who took floor and spoke and who are running a campaign for freedom of Mr. Öcalan, and also running campaigns and activities, I would like to thank them once again for their work. But first of all, I also would like to give special thanks to you. I have to convey from Imrali, from Mr. Öcalan. Before coming to this conference, if we could go to Imrali Island, I am sure Öcalan would also send a message from Island with regard to this conference, but we didn't have the opportunity. But after I go back, when I go to the island again, I will report about this conference. The level, the participants, we will inform Öcalan about all this work that you do. I'm sure that he will be very happy to hear that. I am a person that I had the opportunity to see Öcalan for a long time. So after a period of 10 years, we restarted this. The process started, and we had the chance to see Öcalan, to talk to him, to discuss with him. So we entered a period, a process, a very meaningful process. 2010, 2011, after following the meetings together with the Turkish officials, we could go to Imrali Island, and then that's where I met him again. And Idris Baluken, my colleague, together with him, we were actively part of that process back then. And there was a pause for 10 years, a break. This 10 years that I think that was wasted. And they missed the chance to use that chance for solution. De-escalation, peace, they were all the topics that we were discussing back then, but unfortunately the outcome was not the way that we were expecting. But as I said, there was a break of 10 years, and not only the political delegations, but the lawyers, the families, none of them were allowed to see Mr. Öcalan. 10 years of no contact with outside. After that period of 10 years, in 2024, just before 2025, almost, I think it was beginning of January, we restarted the contact, and so we already know that's how the contact re-established. So far, we have 3 visits as a political delegation, and in the course of every visit, Öcalan always mentioned peace and the alliance of the Turkish and Kurdish people and the democratization of the Middle East. These are the 3 topics that he was focusing on. And he said, once we can develop these 3 points, we can build peace. And he had also very thorough analysis and evaluations with regard to the situation. And also we discussed what should be done. In the first meeting with him, he said, we spent 50 years with rebellion. The history of rebellion of the Kurdish people. 50 years ago. It started 50 years ago, but the reasons, the grounds for it, the denial of the Kurdish people, the denial of the Kurdish identity, and the ban on the Kurdish language. These were the reasons that forced us to rebel. But after 50 years of rebellion, the last 20-25 years, I thought, and I had this idea that we cannot solve this problem through weapons. Therefore, I thought that Öcalan said that he thought a new phase to start this period for a solution. And when he was saying that, he said he emphasized every time, at the time of the foundation of the Turkish Republic, the Turks and the Kurds, they worked together and they built this country, and how Mustafa Kemal was talking to Kurds, and he also kept İsmet İnönü with him, so they managed to build a republic. But current situation that we see, and now we see that today people look at this 50 years of rebellion from a point of view that have no idea about the cooperation between the Turkish and Kurdish people at the beginning of the Turkish Republic. So, in order to revive this togetherness, the collaboration of the Turkish people and Kurdish people, we need to revise our history and remember the history. So I decided that there is no solution but laying down the weapons or saying goodbye to the weapons. So it's the time for laying down the weapons and building the peace. So he also evaluated or analyzed the previous peace process, and he said that we were not really prepared for that. Maybe the people were ready for peace, but the politics and the politicians, we were not ready for this process back then. Yes, back then the society was ready, but the politics was not ready, because there was a nationalist front was against this peace process. But now, especially the ones that we call nationalists and their president, leader of MHP, Devlet Bahçeli, with his step, we started a new phase, a new process. Of course, Bahçeli's call was not his own idea or his thinking. Devlet Bahçeli was expressing the decision given by the deep state and all the involved parties within the state. So he was a spokesperson for the deep state. And then after that came the calls and the speeches they made on the initiatives. Let it start. It was like a reason that we start all this period. And Öcalan said that if in this country, if Devlet Bahçeli has changed in this country, that means that everybody can change in this country. As such an ultra-nationalist leader is talking about peace now. Because 10 years ago, this person was asking for my execution, asking for my for death penalty for me, and then today he's inviting me to the Turkish parliament to deliver a speech. That is a very good sign that there is a change within the state. So at the first meeting, Öcalan said that he was making preparations, and this preparation it will become concrete once he make his call and call for peace. So he said, I give you a task to prepare for this period to come, because the solution of this problem will take place in the Turkish parliament. And place where the Kurdish problem can be solved is the parliament. He emphasized it, and he asked us to visit every single political party in Turkey and talk to their presidents and invite them to take part in this process. And first of all, we met the MHP leader Devlet Bahçeli and Özgür Özel from CHP and the AKP parliamentary group, Gelecek Party and Deva Party. We paid them visits and we conveyed Öcalan's ideas, and also we also listened to them that how they approach to this period, to this process. But Öcalan also asked to collect their ideas, their critiques, and their thoughts. That's why, because Öcalan said it will contribute this process. That's why we also collected their ideas and thoughts with regard to the process. And then all these meetings, they were in very positive atmosphere, and everybody talked about what kind of contribution that they can perform. Nobody refused the process. Nobody gave us any negative signals. They were all welcoming the thoughts of bringing an end to the violence and a solution to the Kurdish problem. But at the end, we saw the Kurdish people have been denied. There were a period of war, conflict. There are so many people lost their lives, and I'm saying it for both sides. We lost a lot, both Turks and the Kurds. The police were killed, the soldiers were killed, but also the guerrilla were killed. So it was a vicious circle of violence that both sides were fighting against each other and causing loss, and there were no positive steps to find a solution. Therefore, the peace is something that is very valuable. It's valued by everyone. It's very meaningful for everyone. So when we were reporting back to Öcalan about these meetings with the political parties, and Öcalan was very pleased to hear that nobody will stand against peace. He said, that's it. And he also added that the Kurds should love the Turks as much as they love themselves, because we are brothers and we are sisters. Therefore, when we shared all these discussions and reported back to Öcalan after the political party, he said, I have another task. Now, you go to South Kurdistan and ask about Barzani and Talabani's ideas about peace process. You need to go exchange ideas and collect their thoughts, ideas, and also their critics with regard to this process. So after the second meeting on Imrali, we traveled to South Kurdistan and we met Mesut Barzani and Nechirvan Barzani on behalf of KDP, and on behalf of the PUK, we met with Bafıl Talabani and Kubat Talabani. We met them separately and talk about this process.
Kürdistan'da yaptığımız ziyarette de
in the course of the visits in South Kurdistan, we also saw that everybody is very positive and welcoming, and a political solution in Turkey is also very, very closely related to South Kurdistan. They meant that it will have a great impact on South Kurdistan as well, a solution in Turkey. So we also shared this with Mr. Öcalan, and after that he said he will start writing his call and he will make it public soon. in a public meeting. So meanwhile, the state officials were paying visits to Imrali very often because they were talking about the text of this call. They were negotiating, and Mr. Öcalan, the text of call was not a text that's written only by Öcalan. It was as a result or outcome of a negotiation with the Turkish state team. And then when it was ready, we were asked to go to the island with a bigger delegation, and our political party, them, our co-chairs, and members of the Imrali delegation, me, myself, and also Süreyya Önder, and Mr. Öcalan's two lawyers of Mr. Öcalan, and also other prisoners kept in Imrali Island, and they all took part. They joined this meeting of the peace call. On the day of the call, everybody was so hopeful, very excited. In the streets, in the squares, the people were ready to listen to this call with the big screens set up in the street. Following the call, after the call, maybe partially, maybe little bit, there were some critics that it wasn't fulfilling the expectations. But when we look at the content of the call closely, the shock of the first glance, we succeeded it, or we got rid of that shock very quickly, because the call was not meaning that the steps which are to be taken by the Kurdish side, but also there was also some steps mentioned that the Turkish side also should take. And there was also, so in the call there was also a call about laying down and dissolving a party that Öcalan founded himself. And after the call, there was also an emphasis for preparation or for creating the legal and political basis for this to take place. So and the reflection of this call on the society, and also Öcalan is not wondering what the society thinks about it or what the state party will do. And I'm sure he's very curious now, but we didn't have the chance to visit him again after the call. But we know that he monitors it very closely. He has a TV, and I know that he regularly watches the news and also discussion shows. And I am sure he is very closely following the reflections of his call for peace. For example, in Newroz, we ask we want a message from Mr. Öcalan, and we informed the Turkish officials, please deliver a message. And when the and Öcalan said that he said that now we are in the process of discussing these call and the steps, so I will not make another call of Newroz which might leave the other discussions in the shade, or so he refrained making a big statement for Newroz. That's the reason. And we also Öcalan also told us that we need to have a meeting with Erdogan. It was delayed. We know it was late, But it was important also to pay a visit to President Erdogan, because everybody was thinking in their minds why Erdogan is not a part of this process, why he doesn't make any statements, what is his stance in the face of such a process. There were so many questions, so many question marks in the minds. Therefore, after meeting Erdogan, we saw that in the middle, in the center of this process, there is the President Erdogan, but also all the political parties are a part of this process. Erdogan is not out of this process. He's also a part of it. And in the course of this meeting, we prepared a summary of the discussions, and we shared, but we also shared our expectations. So we shared the summary of the discussions that we had with Öcalan, but also shared our expectations, what kind of steps should be taken, what we expect from the Turkish side. We shared with the President Erdogan, because for physical freedom of Öcalan and for giving him the opportunity to lead this process, there are some legal amendments that are required, some legal changes, amendments. And Mr. Öcalan, at the time of the first process, like 10 years ago, he was kept in a cell which was big, around like 12 meters square, and in that cell he was kept for 20 years all alone, and he was always thinking how I can find a solution for this problem. That's how he spent his 20 years in that cell, 12 square meters. And when we started this new process, he said that he cannot work in that small cell, so he was moved to a bigger cell within the same building, but maybe just slightly bigger than his previous cell. And then he moved there, and then now he's working there. And the last visit, we wanted to see his new cell, and we visited his new cell where he was living. But the other three prisoners, Hamili Yıldırım, Veysi Aktaş, Ömer Hayri, those prisoners, they are still kept in the small cells, which are also 12 square meters. There is no change in their situation. So these circumstances are not suitable for Öcalan to be able to develop this process. Health, security, and freedom. These are the three conditions that need to be improved. Unless they happen, Öcalan cannot have a fruitful or successful work. Therefore, immediately, rapidly, there should be the steps taken. Öcalan's condition should be improved, changed, and legal amendments should take place, and the path towards so that the path towards freedom can be paved. Our meetings with the ministers in terms of improving the conditions, but we don't have anything concrete in our hands to tell when these legal changes, legal amendments will take place. This literally we say these are literally the conditions for the process that's initiated by Öcalan to have a successful outcome. a peaceful peace process and dissolvement of a 50-year-old party, and that they will lay down their weapons, but that this process of disarmament and dissolvement of the party that stucks because of these very simple improvements that can be made very simply. So this is unacceptable, that this process is now being blocked by not changing the conditions. Therefore, we immediately we need legal amendments and improving Öcalan's prison conditions. When we return, we will also have a meeting with the Minister of Justice, and then possibly we will go to Imrali Island and pay a visit to Mr. Öcalan. And this process was supposed to be completed within a couple of months. So by the end of June. This process should reach the goal. This is what Öcalan thinks, and also the state officials, they also agree. Therefore, the meetings, the work that has been done, and the support that will given to this process in every European country, it will be a great contribution for the success of this process. Every country, according to their perspective, according to their size, there are lots of things that they can do to contribute, because we know every step will contribute the physical freedom of Mr. Öcalan. And this is, therefore, we have great expectations from the European countries. Support is very important. It is a contribution to peace, because it's a support for the peace, because in Turkey, Turkish and Kurdish people will have a ground, a common ground, where they both coexist in peace. There will be no loser in terms of peace, but the winner will be everyone when peace comes. Turks, Kurds, Alevites, women, youngsters, the east or the west of the country, everybody will win in peace. When the process was suspended in 2015, and 3 years, that was a period of the first negotiation, and we said these 3 years, the period of 3 years, was a great gain for us, because nobody died within those periods. Within that period of time, no mother cried after their sons or daughters, and the youngsters were not buried under the soil. But once the process collapsed, the conflict restarted. There were more casualties, and there were more bodies buried under the ground. There were so many our youngsters, children, who were they lost their lives because of the restarted conflict. And it's in our hands to make this process successful, in our rhetoric, within our campaigns, our activities, all the way that we can support this process. We can support this process the way that we can. But I also would like to mention that the biggest expectation of Öcalan is from the women and from the youngs. Every meeting, Öcalan opens a new title, a new chapter for the women. Women, especially the Kurdish women living in Turkey, but also all the women in Turkey, the violence that they face, the murder, the killings, femicide, all these, Öcalan always have this very long and thorough analysis with regard to violence against women. And he also underlined the importance of the struggle for equality, how meaningful it is for the woman, because this, and he says, freedom of women, or our fight for equality and freedom is very closely tied to freedom of women. And he also very sensible about the death of the children. The Narin, a young Kurdish girl which was killed by his family, it was also a topic of our discussions. He talked about the killing children and the killing women. He said a peace will also prevent the violence against women and also violence against the children, because that's the mentality that we have to fight against. That's the real mentality, that's the real fight. To fight against the mentality that kills women, that kills children. And he says with democratic socialism we can prevent this violence, and we all need to get to work immediately. Therefore, under one call, he said a call for peace and a democratic society. That's what he means with this call. And here, of course, there are many things that we can talk about them very long, maybe for hours. We can share the details of our meetings, but due to the lack of time, I know we have a limited time. So shortly, we are all hopeful, and we are all closer to peace, because Mr. Öcalan says, I have the power to bring the peace, to develop the peace. And we stand with Öcalan, we say either peace or peace.